Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Resilient and Rowdy. This is your host, Jess, and today I have a special guest, Britt Harris. Britt, thanks for coming on. Welcome.
Excited to be here.
Yeah, good. I'm really glad I tracked you down. So I guess tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Oh, where to start? Okay. My name's Britt Harris. I'm a Gold Star spouse. I'm involved in several nonprofits. I'm a current PhD student and a mother to a 4-year-old.
Whew,
I think those are the basics.
yeah, wow. Okay, first of all, you're in a PhD program. That's really cool. Good for you. In psychology or
Industrial organizational psychology. So not really
oh.
like clinical, more like research and statistics and like organizational stuff for like.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. I didn't know that. Good for you. You go, girl. You're doing a lot. Also on top of, yeah, being a mother to a 4-year-old. How's that?
She's definitely reached that age where she's like coming into her personality and more defiant, but like in an independent way. So there's a lot of like butting heads of like, hey, let me help you, and no, I can do it myself. And I'm like, it'll be so much faster if you just let me help you. And she's like, I can do it myself. So we're like, okay, yeah, you can do it yourself, and it'll only take like 5 times longer than if I just help you. But it's a lot of learning patience kind of right
Mm,
now.
yeah, that's beautiful. She is absolutely precious. I feel like it's been quite the journey, and like, a lot of people have just seen her grow up. So yeah, it's wow, motherhood. Yeah, so you are juggling a lot, but yeah, I wanted to get you on the podcast today because I truly just admire who you are as a woman and how resilient you are, and also just like all of the cool things that you do in the community, um, and how important that community is, whether that be like on either side of it, whether you're receiving the help, you're a part of the help. I think that that's truly like what has made a difference in a lot of people's lives with healing. So um, I can imagine that being a gold star spouse is, heavy enough in itself, but I'm sure that you have found along the way like groups of people or even individuals that have, been there to guide you and let you know that you're not alone. So I would really love to touch on that and how that's basically like made a difference in your path and journey.
Um, yeah, for sure. There was a lot of people. When my husband Chris, when he passed, he was killed in combat. He was deployed to Afghanistan. It was his first deployment ever, and my first experience with a deployment. And he was killed by a suicide bomber, uh, like pretty much right at the day of being there for like a whole month. Um, so also like 3 weeks into his deployment, I found out I was pregnant unexpectedly, and I shared the news with him over FaceTime. So we got like 1 week of celebrating together, texting, stuff like that. And then a week after I told him, he passed. So it was well, I guess I could backtrack a little more from that. In February of 2017, my grandfather, who essentially was my dad and like raised me my whole life, he passed away unexpectedly from a heart attack, and that kind of shook me to my core. That was pretty devastating. Um, and I was in the midst of grieving and dealing with a lot of that. And then my best friend also, she passed away the week that Chris deployed. I think she was in the hospital. She was in a coma, like right after she gave birth. She had some complications, and I was there when they pulled her off life support on the same day that Chris was on a plane. So I had already gone through two major losses, and a lot of my friends and family were like, "We're pretty concerned about you. Like, are you okay? Your husband just left for a deployment. You're grieving two people that were very important to you." And then 3 weeks in, I said I found out I was pregnant, and then a week later. So then I went through three major losses within 6 months, and I was pregnant. Um, I honestly didn't think, I was like, every day I kind of woke up and I was like, I don't think I can handle this. But like, I'm like waiting on like a mental breakdown to happen. Uh, I don't, I don't physically or mentally know what I'm supposed to do. I don't think I'm going to be okay. I'm like sitting just waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like, what's going to be the one thing that pushes me over the edge? Like, there's no way anybody can handle this, let alone me.
Right.
And so when Chris passed, I had already had so much support from like close friends and family of like, well, your grandpa and your best friend, like that's a big deal. And I had so many people already in my corner. And then when Chris passed and people found out I was pregnant, it was overwhelming in a good way, but also, kind of in a bad way. Like I didn't know what to do because I had so many people reaching out to me, just tons of support and messages. And at the time, it was just like too much. Um, it was literally like thousands of messages. Like I didn't even know how to open them all and respond. So I just kind of shut down. And one part of me was like, oh, wow, that's amazing. Like that means so much to me. But, the other part of me that's like struggling to hang on was like, just turn your phone off. You don't have to talk to people right now. But, I kind of battled with myself of like, you don't want to seem like you don't care and you're ungrateful. Like you need to let people know that you appreciate the support. But it took a little bit for me to kind of get in a headspace where I was like, okay, I'm going to reach out and respond to people, and I'm going to say thank you, if nothing else. So a lot of my messages were just thank you, thank you, thank you, just to let people know like, hey, I got your message. I appreciate it. I just have nothing to give right now other than a thank you. So then I kind of felt like, wow, I'm really overwhelmed and I don't know what to do and I don't want to upset anybody, but am I also like taking time for myself and like focusing on my mental health? It was a lot to juggle, and then the support didn't stop, which is what was surprising. A lot of people that I talked to shared the same sentiment. Like, once the funeral's over, people kind of just go back to their lives. And for some part, like that was true. And that's expected because you can't expect everyone to grieve with you forever. It's not logical. Like people grieve with you and they have to go back to their lives. I couldn't because mine was completely uprooted and turned over. But it wasn't as many people as I thought. There was still so much outpouring of, can I do anything for you? Is there anything you need? I talked to this nonprofit and they said that you should contact them. That was a big thing. There were so many people that would reach out on my behalf without me asking. They were just like, there's this company that said that they will give you an entire like crib set and this and this and this and all of these things for the baby. And I messaged them and I emailed them and I told them your story, and all we need to know is like what pattern you like. And I was like, oh, that one, and they were like, send me things like that. And they're like, hey, I reached out to this organization and they said this and I talked to them for you. I hope that's okay. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, yeah, that's awesome. So that was really sweet. I always appreciated that people were just like, I just want to make sure it's okay with you before I do this, but here's this thing. And, I think it would help. And I'm like, that's really thoughtful. And that went on for a while. I had a lot of people that just continued to reach out. And then it turned into like viral photos and videos and TV appearances and interviews and things like that. And at first I was a little like hesitant of like, I don't really want to do that. I don't like being in the limelight for this. This is uncomfortable. And there was a lot of backlash kind of, which was an unfortunate thing. And I've talked to many other Gold Star spouses and they've experienced pretty much identical situations. I don't know what possesses a person to do that, but a lot of people were just angry, negative, would send me like hate mail kind of stuff, really vulgar messages about Chris's death and how he deserved it or something. It, just from the far corners of the internet type of stuff. So the more that happened, the more I was like, I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to be on anybody's radar. I don't want to do anything. I just want to go hide. All the love and support is great, but like it's not worth getting people like attacking me for literally no reason. I was like, my husband died. I don't understand how I've done something wrong by that. Um, so I kind of just like went into hiding for a little bit. And then Chris's mother was like, she sat me down and was like, you know, if you don't talk about Chris, who will? And I was like, yeah, you're right. So I was like, this is kind of not my responsibility, but like a privilege that I do get to share this, his story and our story. And I don't want his name to die. So yeah, I will take the opportunities. And then I started speaking out more and doing more things involved in the media. And, you know, that just kind of led to a domino effect of meeting people and meeting nonprofits. And that's kind of how I started getting my foot in the door with a lot of nonprofit work. And volunteering with people was, they were like, hey, I saw you on such and such interview or news, or I saw your story tonight on the local news, something like that. And I was just like, oh, okay, cool. So I don't regret that. Like at first I was like, this is going to be awful. Like people are going to say mean things to me. And then it was like, people were really good to me. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And it led to so many new opportunities. So I'm pretty grateful for that.
Wow. Well, I appreciate your like absolute like honesty, and that just sounds like an absolute roller coaster. I'm very sorry to hear about your losses all in 1 year. Like that's tough, but the fact that you had that type of support is really good to hear. But I guess like with your honesty, like yeah, sometimes that can feel like too much. And I'm really admiring like your self-awareness, like how can I show up, how can I still be grateful but still maintain some privacy, some boundaries. But I really like how Chris's mom kind of put it into perspective, like it is a privilege and an honor to keep sharing your husband's story. And that's, I guess, like what I also admire too, is that, you know, everyone has moved on with their lives, and you can too in a healthy aspect, but you can still honor and respect the time that y'all had together, the sacrifices that he made, and you know, the fact that y'all have this beautiful daughter together. And I think that's like the ultimate legacy, is you truly living your life without feeling like you have to hide, because like you don't deserve that type of backlash or that hate. You're just a gold star spouse. You're a woman doing her best. And if anything, I think it's just truly just shown your character, that you were changed by that community, and you want to help support and continue that type of community, because that's like kind of like the healing that we need, whether you realize it or not. So I guess what's been the most fulfilling part about, you know, volunteering and getting into nonprofit work? Because sometimes I feel like it can be challenging, but it can be fun. It can be a lot of work, but it is very fulfilling. I've gotten into some of that as well, and yeah, it's got a hold on me. Like it takes a lot out of me, but it's worth it. So I would definitely love to hear more about the things that you do, like Camp Resilient, and any of the other things that you do with that.
Oh yeah, I love it. I love being involved in the nonprofit. Like I get nothing from it, you know? Like nobody's like, here's this special privilege or money or anything. I'm just like, hey, what can I do? Can I be there? Can I show up? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, all right, awesome. And sometimes like, you know, helping out is just spreading the word for them. And a lot of the nonprofits I'm involved with are for, you know, children of fallen heroes. So that's a pretty small community, um, which, you know, it doesn't get as much attention as it should. So, you know, just, hey, there's this organization that exists. Like sometimes that's all it takes is, you know, to help. So the three that I'm the most involved with is the Patriot Foundation, which is local to me here in Pinehurst, North Carolina. And then they help with like scholarships for children who have lost a parent in combat. And then there's Children of Fallen Heroes, which I absolutely love. And the CEO, he's wonderful. I do a lot of things with him. And it's not just military, it's like first responders as well. And he is very, very involved in that community, and he puts together a ton of things for kids. He really just never stopped. Like, he amazes me. I'm like, you never slow down. And I mean, he's like, we're gonna put together this giant trick or treat thing like every year, and there's like 20-30,000 people that are going to be there, and I'm like, wow. And they have helicopter rides and all this crazy stuff. And then he's like, and we're doing the Veterans Day parade, and I'm like, and he's like, we're going to have skydivers jump into it. I'm like, how do you have time to organize? But he's really wonderful. His name's Ken. And so anytime he does any type of event, he includes Christian and I, and they just really, I did an event for Chris for his 1-year anniversary. I did an event in Fayetteville and did a paper dedication at the Airborne Museum there, and Ken was there and helped out with it, and they had skydivers jump in, and it was really helpful having him there, and a lot of other people obviously pitched in, and we raised a bunch of money and raffled off some stuff, and I donated all of the money to the Folded Flag Foundation. So that was, I was like, I don't need money, so I want to find other organizations to give back to. That's another one that's been really good to me, the Folded Flag Foundation. And then Camp Resilient, obviously, I'm the VP on the board of directors, and that's a nonprofit here, local to me, obviously, and that's helping veterans and their families with trauma in very holistic kind of ways. So we do like horseback riding or horse therapy, yoga, meditation, forest bathing, things that are specifically surrounding nature. And so that one's kind of finally getting off the ground and running, so that's exciting. And we kind of started growing and bringing in new board members and ambassadors, and I'm pretty proud because I remember when it was just starting, and the guy that had the idea was like, hey, I want you on board. And I was like, me? He was like, yeah. And I want you to be the VP. And I was like, me? Like, why? There's always that like imposter syndrome of like, are you sure you're talking to the right person? Like, I don't feel like you could find someone else. And he's like, no, you. And I'm like, okay. So it's been a couple years now, and I'm really enjoying watching that one grow.
That's really awesome. And I feel like that is, I think, like a huge aspect of healing that like is so underrated, the holistic approach, getting out into nature, like horse therapy. Like why do horses do that? I don't know. Like it's like telepathy or something. I don't know. But that's really cool. And I appreciate, again, like just your honesty. You're like, what, me? Like, how could I? But in some ways, whether you realize it or not, just even showing up is making the difference. You don't have to be this big hot shot to care. And I think that's just kind of like what I get from you, is that you genuinely care about, yourself, your daughter, the people, the community, anyone else who has struggled, and you don't want anyone to feel alone. So with the immense amount of help and community that you have, you're just wanting to make sure that other people have that as well. So I think that's really admirable, and I think that's very important. So good on you for just being a part of the mission to help others. Like that in itself is really awesome. So I hope that you take the time to admire everything that you are doing. But I also want to talk about how you take care of you, like as a woman, as a Gold Star spouse, like as a mother. Like how are you taking care of yourself? Like how do you unwind and kind of like reevaluate, like, hey, I'm kind of struggling right now. Like I'm a little more tense, or I'm a little on edge. Like, how do you ground yourself, and like, what are the ways that you do that?
So after Chris passed, I tried like clinical counseling, and I think it's great. I've been in counseling many times, throughout my adult life, and I am a big advocate for it. But at that point in my life, it wasn't what I needed. And I was just like, I feel like something's missing. There's a disconnect between me and the therapist. Like, this doesn't feel like she understands me. And then I went through an organization that connected me to other Gold Stars. And that was better, but I still was like, I just don't feel like I'm getting what I need.
Mm.
And through that same organization, it's TAPS. Uh, while I was browsing their website looking for, other resources that they had for Gold Star, people, I was like, well, there's this hike to Kilimanjaro.
Whoa.
And I was like, that sounds fun. And I was like, I just think I'm gonna do that. And I talked to Chris's mom. I remember I like at least once a month I go up to her and I'm like, so I've got an idea. And she goes, oh no. And I was like, hey, I have an idea. And she was like, okay, what is it? And I was like, I'm gonna go hike Kilimanjaro in Africa. And she was like, I think you should. And I was like, really? And she was like, absolutely. She was like, do it. And I was like, you'll help me out with Christian, because I was gone for like almost 2 weeks. And I hadn't left her at that point. So I was like, this will be okay. And she was like, yeah. And I was like, all right, I'll have to get over that anxiety of like leaving my child for the first time and really dealing with a lot of anxieties, traveling that far, doing something that intimidating, leaving my kid, because I had really bad postpartum anxiety, just considering all the things that had happened. And I did a little bit of the helicopter parenting for a first chunk of Christian's life. So it was difficult to like leave her, but I was like, I can do it. It's fine. And Chris's mother was very reassuring. It's fine. Like, it's fine, and I'm like, it's fine. Like, it'll be okay. So I went and I did that. And it was definitely an addictive experience. It was something that I can't put into words of how incredible it was to be at the summit at sunrise, looking out, and it was just the most incredible thing. And looking at the stars at night, they were like right in my face, and I was cold and dirty, and I didn't get to bathe for like a week. And I was like, I love this. This is the best. Like, I love this. Disgusting, and it's still okay. And, just being in like, a different place and a different culture, and like really getting to like travel and see something. I've done more traveling since Chris passed than I did in my entire life. I had gone a few places, nothing super crazy and not very often. But after he passed, I've multiple times kind of explained it that Chris's death was a second chance for me to live. And I really had a new perspective on life and things that were important and what wasn't important that I was placing, at the top of my priority list. And I was like, I really need to reevaluate what I want to do with my life. And I'm going to hike and I'm going to travel and I'm going to see things and I'm going to live a life that I'm proud of. And when I'm older, I'm going to look back and be like, I did a lot of things and I'm proud of those things. And I hope that Christian's proud of me for those things. And that was kind of like my mantra when I was hiking Kilimanjaro. We were like on the last leg and I was definitely like exhausted and like struggling. And, they told us as a group, like when you feel like you're struggling, like you need to have a mantra that you chant to yourself, that you say, that really motivates you. And I had a quote from the book Wild by Cheryl Strayed that I kind of recited to myself. And that got me going for like the first bit. And then it came to like that last day. And I was just like so tired. And you're taking tiny little steps and, that it's harder to breathe and it's cold and you're just like trying to get there. And I just kept thinking like, you have to finish because you have to tell Christian that you did this. Like, you have to make it to the top. You have to tell her that you did this. Like, she's going to be so proud of you one day. Like, just keep going just a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. Like, you're going to be able to tell Christian you did this. And that was like my big thing was like, I have to do this for her because she's going to be so proud of me. Like, she was this little bitty thing at the time. She had probably no idea I was even gone. But I was like, she's going to be so proud of me. Like, I'll get there. And when I got to the top, I was like so proud of myself, not because I did something impressive, but I was like, I can't wait until she's at an age where I can tell her I did this and she understands, like, I did this for you. I did this so you would be proud of me and so that you'll maybe want to look up to me and do things that I did. and I don't expect her to follow in my footsteps by any means, but I do hope I inspire her. Like, that thing that you think is really hard and that you can't do, you totally can. Like, if your mom can go hike like Africa's tallest mountain, like, you can do this thing. So that was a big motivator, and it still is. Like, obviously doing things that she'll be proud of me. Like, her opinion of me matters more than anything, and she's only 4. And yeah, I'm like, it means so much to me. Like, are you like happy with mommy? Yeah, you're proud of me? Like, good. Or, you know, she's like, I love you so much, just randomly. And I'm like, oh, yes, I'm doing a good job, you know? So hiking was really like that experience that I needed. And I was like, this feels good. Like, I feel so much better in nature, and I can't find this feeling anywhere else. And I love this. Like, I love just kind of being out here with my thoughts. And that was something I had been avoiding because, you know, I was going through a lot, and it made me sad to think about that stuff. And I didn't want to be alone. I wanted to be busy, 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 busy all the time, because then there's no downtime. There's no time to think. But like being out in nature, and it's just like, you know, you're hiking and you're focused on looking where your feet are going and things that are around you, and you're so situationally aware, and then just like taking a moment, stopping and looking, and just like taking a deep breath. Like, it's so healing to me. Like, getting to the very top of something and just looking out at this like unbelievable landscape, like, wow, I've never seen anything like this at home. That's a feeling that I love. I thrive when I'm, you know, hiking. So I did a lot of it, and I started going to the desert and hiking, which I really enjoy. I definitely prefer the desert over cold. So I started looking for any opportunity to go somewhere to hike something, and people that wanted to go with me. And then I decided, you know what, I'll go back to school too. So I'll get my degree. So I got my master's, and in between breaks, I would go somewhere and hike and come back and do a bunch of schoolwork and go somewhere and hike. And I did that for a little bit, and I still kind of am. Yeah, and then I got really into yoga. I had done some yoga in my like associate's degree. It was like a class that was offered. And so I was like, yeah, I like this. And my best friend worked the front desk at our local hot yoga studio. And she was like, you should come do it here. And I was like, okay. So I did it there a couple times. I was like, I really like hot yoga. That's better. Yeah, that's nice. And so that was just kind of something I did here and there. And it wasn't anything I was very consistent with. But after I got back from hiking Kilimanjaro, I was like, I want to do more yoga. And like, literally, as soon as that, you know, thought kind of happened and I got back, our local yoga studio called Hot Asana, and it's a hot yoga place. And they put out like an announcement, like on their social media. The owner is one of the most incredible women I've ever met in my life. And she posted, she was like, no Gold Star will ever pay here. And I was like, oh, and like so many people sent me that post. They were like, you like yoga and here. And I was like, and I love hot asana. Like, wow, what a perfect sign. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go back and get into hot yoga. And I was like, what a blessing. So I'm there like 3 days a week still. And it's been like 4 years now. And I'm there as much as I can be. And I did my yoga teacher training certification through them. I rarely go to the class by myself. Like, I always make someone go with me. I'm like, hey, you want to go to yoga? And they're like, no. I'm like, yeah, you do. Let's go. And I'm like, the more people I can get involved, because that's the best thing, is they'll be like, it's yoga. And I'm like, no, wait till you get in there. And then it's like big army dudes that are my friends, and they're like, oh my God, I can't, it's too hard. And I'm like, yeah, it's the best. And then they go a couple times. And then what the best part is I make everybody go with me. And then all of a sudden I'll start seeing that they posted like on social media that they went by themselves. And then they bought a package, and they're like, wow, Britt, like, thank you for kind of literally forcing me to go. But like, I'm really glad you did. And I'm like, that's the best. Like, and then they just start going routinely on their own, and they get, you know, a lot of benefits from it. And I'm super proud of that. So that's, you know, hiking and yoga were two, like, one, you know, grounded me and the other, like, you know, made me feel like more open-minded, you know, like I need to look into new things, and I need to like explore new things, and I need to share these things with people.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the two things that I always recommend to people. Like, you should get out and you should go outside and you should hike and you should go places you've never been and see that the world is like this big, vast place full of like diversity, and this small area that you might live in is awesome, but you should see, you know, the other things that are out there. And plus, it always makes me more appreciative when I come home, because I'll get that, you know, that itch, like I need to travel, I need to go see, I'm bored here, like, ugh, I've seen enough pine trees. And then I'll plan something, I'll go, and then while I'm out there, I'm like, oh, I really miss home. And then I get back here and I have like a new appreciation. I'm like, okay, I really do love this place. And then yoga is just, it's so good, like mind, body, and spirit. And the yoga teacher certification through Hot Asana is something I recommend to everyone, because they do it like online and stuff too. And it's just, it like changes the way you think about exercise or yoga. Or there was a lot of spiritual talk in that training that really changed the way I viewed things and really opened my mind. And I was like, okay, like maybe it's not everything that you think that it is, and maybe spirituality is more important in my life now, and really opened that door as well.
Wow. So I just want to say that I think your approach to things is one of the better ways to handle trauma. In my perspective, I felt I went from very extroverted, doing all the things, always keeping busy, to then just shutting down and just staying home and like having the urge to go do things, but then being too like paralyzed in my own body, in my own thoughts to go do those things. So I truly admire your strength to try new things, put yourself out there, let alone like, you know, for example, going to Africa. Like, I think that's hilarious and like awesome at the same time, like just so random. But and then in the midst of that, just finding yourself, getting in tune with, you know, mind, body, soul. Like, that's where, you know, nature, connecting to your body through yoga is just like, is I think kind of underrated. Like, a lot of people just think like, oh, you go to therapy and like you get better, but there's different approaches to connecting with your thoughts, connecting with your body, and like what you truly need. And looking back on how you said that you wanted to live a life that you're proud of, as well as like your daughter, I think that is an incredible like push to keep going, whether that be for your daughter or for yourself. But again, just going back on that, like, okay, yes, you went through some difficult things, but that doesn't mean that you need to just not do anything and live in the past and not enjoy your life. So it's just really beautiful to see you, you know, radiate from within. And I think that's what drew me to you, is just like, you just have this energy about yourself that's just genuine and pure and just present and real. And so you're honest with yourself about what you need to do. And yeah, the fact that you said that no one else's opinion but your daughter's matters to you, I think that's very sweet and very important in itself as well, that you're true to yourself and that you're being the woman that you want to be, as well as a woman that Christian can look up to and aspire to be. Not necessarily in the same ways, like you said, but still like, wow, my mom did that. My mom pulled herself out of these dark places, and, you know, you don't neglect that part of yourself, because that's part of your story, but that's what pushes you to do better, to get out there. And even how you said that traveling and getting out of your shell makes you more grateful of being at home. I think that that's beautiful too. So like, there's just been like a shift in your perspective. And I think that that's been like the biggest catalyst of your healing journey. So I really love to hear that. And I love seeing that, you know, you found community in so many different ways, and that you're able to give back. Like, people give to you and you give back more. And I think that that's really awesome.
Well, thank you. Yeah, there was definitely a lot of guilt, which I think is a lot of the reason that people become so opinionated about other people's grief. You didn't grieve long enough. You look too happy too soon. And it's like, oh, okay. Everybody they have like their own preconceived notion of like, this is how long you should grieve. And it's like, okay. But I was dealing with my own guilt of like, I don't think it's soon enough to laugh. I don't feel like it's okay to be happy yet. I don't think I should go on this trip that some organization like offered to pay for so I could come out and do this retreat or something. Mm-hmm. It seems like it's not okay to go relax yet. I have to grieve. And then having so many other people like, yep, you're supposed to still be grieving. And it's like, what? Okay. And it's really easy to get pushed down into that narrative of like, you're supposed to be sad. Like, well, obviously I'm sad. Like, I just went through like something very traumatic and life-changing. Like, I am sad. But then if people see you anywhere, like doing anything like remotely like fun or enjoyable, they're like, you don't look sad enough. And it's like, what? Like, what do you expect me to cry 24/7? Like, that's not right. And so a lot of people and a lot of the gold stars that I've talked to, that was the main thing, was other people's opinions. Wow. And people pushing that onto them. Like, you didn't love him. You're already, you took your ring off. And I was like, I took my ring off because I'm pregnant and my fingers are swollen. Like, I took it off the same way I would have taken it off if he was, still here. Like, my fingers hurt. So, there was just always an outside opinion. You need to be there for your child. You shouldn't be hiking. And I'm like, oh my, okay. So it's hard to like tune out other people, because then you're like, well, maybe they're right. Maybe I'm not sad enough. And then while you're dealing with that, it's also, I don't feel like I deserve to be happy yet, because my spouse died and he should be here and he should be enjoying this with me and he should be at all the doctor's appointments. So I need to punish myself, and I do need to be sad, and I shouldn't enjoy these things because he doesn't get to enjoy these things. And so I'll suffer for the both of us. And I did deal with that for a little. You know what? No, I deserve to be happy. And then it was like, no, Chris died at 25 years old. He had his whole life ahead of him. Like, he doesn't get to do any of this. Like, you should be sad a little longer. I felt guilty for doing things that I felt were happy. And then, I finally just had to branch out of that and start thinking like, he would want me to be happy, right? And, people say that, but it's like, do you really believe that? Or is that just something you're telling yourself? And I had to get to that point where I genuinely believed, like, no, I deserve to be happy. I didn't do anything wrong. I don't deserve to be punished. I don't have to live my life being sad. And by being happy doesn't mean that I didn't love this person. It doesn't mean that I've forgotten them. It doesn't mean I've moved on in any way. It just means I don't want to waste my time. And I know that sounds kind of harsh to say it that way, but I'll explain, I guess. I don't want to waste my time being sad if I don't have to be. And I can still honor Chris and keep his, name alive, but I don't have to be crying the whole time I'm doing it. And something that really changed was my perspective of time. It's so limited. It's so fragile. It's just gone, like that. And everybody's like, I've got all these plans. I'm going to do this. We're going to get married. We're going to have kids. We're going to live our whole lives together. And it's like, nope, that's not right. You don't get to choose that. You don't get to decide that. And your time is the only thing that you can never get back. And I get very upset if I spend more than just a little bit of time being frustrated or upset or sad about something. And I do give my feelings and my emotions the time that they deserve, but I don't like to just cling to it and be in misery. I like to process things, think about them, and think, okay, how do I deal with this and move on from it with like a lesson learned? Because I don't want to look back and be like, I wasted 3 days crying about something because I was just wallowing in self-pity. And now I don't get those 3 days back. Those are 3 days I could have spent hiking with Christian because she loves to hike too. I could have been doing crafts. I could have been doing something productive. I could have been spending quality time with people that I love. I could have been making memories. So I try really hard to not overextend sadness I try to like spend as much time happy and appreciative as possible, because like once again, like I want to look back and be like, wow, I'm really proud of my life. I lived a good life. I spent a lot of it laughing, and I spent a lot of it like having fun with people that meant a lot to me, and they know that, and I express that. And that was another lesson that I took from Chris's passing, was being more vocal about how I feel about people. And giving them the effort of like, hey, here's a random text message. I love you. I hope you have a good day. And it's like, how are people supposed to know that you feel these things if you don't say it? And so I'm like, I'm going to be more selective of my time and how I spend it. And I'm going to focus on building stronger bonds with the people in my life. And I'm going to do things that are good for my soul. And I'm going to explore and hike. And even in like parenting, you know, it's everybody's like terrible twos. It's not. It's 3. 3 is the age. 3 is the age that no one really warns you about. They're like, oh, 3 is bad. No, 3 is emotional, and 4 is not as emotional, but like a lot more negotiating. I have to like apply those things to her too, because I'm like, well, I have to remind myself, like, she's a little person, but she still has big emotions, and she has all the same emotions. She feels anger and sadness and happy and anxiety. She feels everything that an adult feels without the capability of expressing it and handling it. So like how would I feel if I was nervous and I didn't know what that feeling was, and I didn't know how to communicate it, and I didn't know how to soothe it either? That'd be stressful. That'd be pretty exhausting. So I have to think like, okay, you're having an emotion that I have. I just know how to handle it and you don't. So let's work on it. So like one of her favorite things that we do is, if she's feeling overwhelmed or upset, crying, whatever it may be, we take 3 deep breaths, and then we go through all 5 senses together and redirect her thoughts. And I'm like, tell me something that smells good, that feels good, that looks good, that sounds good, you know, and we go through all of them. And then by the end of it, we take 3 more big breaths together. And then I ask her how she's feeling. And she's always like, better. Or sometimes she'll just come up to me and be like, can you help me calm down? Can you ask me questions? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Like, let's go through it. Does that always work? No, sometimes she like throws a toy and like runs away. But I try really hard to instill like, hey, let's talk about it. Let's communicate. Let's feel things, process them, and then move on in a healthy way. Let's not, you know, just scream or, you know, go crazy. So a lot of the lessons that I've learned from Chris's passing, I'm trying to like pass on to her, and like teach her how to like have a healthy lifestyle with the people in her, you know, life and that she cares about, and talk about things and experience things, but not to just be overly, you know, emotional about something. Like, talk about it. Let's, you know, sit down. Let's process this. Let's take a deep breath to reset your nervous system, things like that. And I try to explain it to her, and it honestly, like, it's her favorite thing. She loves that. She's like, I want to go through all the senses. And I'm like, gosh, you're so smart. Like, I love this. You're the best. She's like, you're the best. And I'm like, oh my God, stop.
Y'all are so cute. I really love that, though. I love that you're not dismissive of your daughter's feelings, your child's feelings, just because she's a child. Like you said it best, she has all of these big emotions, and she's just in this little body. So the fact that you're not dismissive is awesome. I'm the youngest of 3, and I was always just told, like, stop being a baby. And that always just really like kind of upset me as a child. Like, oh, my feelings don't matter. I'm whatever. But I also want to add, good on you for just putting your foot down on the shame and the guilt. Honestly, from what you said, it feels like people are like reading too many like Nicholas Sparks books, and they're like, oh, Britt's husband died. Now she's just in her cabin in North Carolina on her rocking chair, and she did nothing for the rest of her life.
Yes.
That's kind of what they want you to do, but
exactly what they want. And I'm like, no, I'm going to go out and do stuff. And they're like, don't you dare. You get back there, you wear black every day for the rest of your life, and you look sad about it. And I'm like, I am sad about it. This is the worst possible thing I've experienced in my life. But I can't not live the rest of my life. Like, what kind of legacy to him, to Christian, to myself? Like, do you really want me to just sit and waste every single day being sad, or do you want me to go out and like represent him and his name and teach Christian like all the possible things I can about being resilient, because that's what I'm doing. And you see, like, there's a lot of people, and I don't mean to like minimize anybody that's in my corner. There's an enormous amount of people in my corner, and my support system is unbelievable. It's so good. Even people that are just like strangers that I've just been like, okay, and then I end up talking to them and we become like very close. And I'm like, wow, like I am so thankful for so many people that just like reached out and they were just nice to me for no reason. They didn't get anything from it, and then they just like continued reaching out. And I'm like, there's so many good people, like there really is. And the ratio of like negative people to supportive people is drastically different. There are way more people out there that are like, you are awesome and I look up to you, or you know, I really love that you did this, or can I ask you a question? And I'm like, yeah, shoot, let's talk about it. And versus, you don't look sad enough. And I'm like, okay. Like, I've literally had people tell me, like, you're living in a fantasy world. You need to get off of social media and go take care of your child and stop living in this make-believe world. Like, your husband died. Act like it. And I'm like, oh, you sound so happy. Like, there's just like a lot of like people who are entitled, and they think that they get to speak on other people's lives. And yeah, that was a big thing of like learning to ignore. It was difficult, and I didn't do a good job of that at first. I definitely let a lot of negativity like dictate what I was going to do and my decisions, and that I regret that. But at the same time, it was something new that I was learning to navigate, and I give myself grace in that I learned from it, and I try not to let that happen anymore. And you know, that's a pretty cliche kind of lesson of, you know, do what you want, don't worry about what other people say. Like, we all know that, but it's so hard in the moment when you feel like all this peer pressure and negativity, or people being mean to you, and you're like, oh, well, I just want that to stop, so I'll do what they want me to do so they'll stop being mean. And then I learned, like, then someone else will just be mad. It doesn't matter. Like, you can try so hard to please everybody, there's going to be somebody who still doesn't like it. They're going to be like, well, yeah, now you don't cry, or you cry more now, but it doesn't look like it's real tears. You know what I mean? There's always gonna be someone to pick it apart. So it's just like, whatever. That was a big adjustment for me of like, all right, well, I'm sorry that you, as a stranger who have never experienced what I have never met me or spoken to me, and have no idea what my life is like, feel the need to tell me how to live my life. I'm just not going to do that, and I won't allow that in my life anymore. And then I definitely had to go through and do some like trimming of the people in my circle, and that was difficult also, is to find out like people that were there just because it was like, well, you're popular at the moment, so like, let's hang out. And I was just like, I love making friends. I love it. I love meeting new people. It's just so much fun to me. And like getting to meet someone and being like, you know, later on, like someone brings something up and you're like, I have a friend that does that. Like, let me connect you. And I love connecting people, and it's so much fun. And so I've kind of let people into my life that didn't deserve to be there, because I'm like, well, they seem nice, but they didn't have good intentions.
Like, you gave them the benefit of the doubt, and it just,
always.
I understand.
I try to always see the good in people, and then some of my very close friends that I have had for years, they'll like nudge me and be like, Britt, like, oh, I don't know what you're doing there. And I'm like, no, that person's really nice. And they're like, no, they don't have your best interest. And I'm like, let's just see how this plays out. And then I'm always like, I was really wrong about that. But I'm like, I remind myself, like, it's never wrong to do the right thing.
Right.
And like, when I feel like, man, I shouldn't have done that, I shouldn't have given that person an opportunity, I should have known better. And then I remind myself, you're being hard on yourself. It's never wrong to do the right thing. Like, it's never wrong to be someone's friend. It's never wrong to give someone, like, you know, a chance, the benefit of the doubt, like to be nice to someone because they said they needed a friend. Like, I did right in that. I did okay. I did the right thing. And the way that they handled it, or their motives or actions, have nothing to do with me. I did okay. Just kind of being more gentle with myself and how I talk to myself has been a big thing in like healing also. I feel like just as a society as a whole, we're like really hard on ourselves.
Yeah, very self-critical, and like nothing good comes of that. Like, have you ever heard of the experiment where they like grow two plants and they give it the same amount of water and the light, and you speak negatively to one plant and then you speak positively to the other, one thrives and one doesn't. And I've had to do that as well. Like, I'm very hard on myself. Like, I feel like almost those external voices that I was hearing of judgment and shame and guilt, I started talking to myself that way, and I was like, no wonder I feel like crap. Like, I don't like myself because of the way that I'm talking to myself. So redirecting that voice, whether it's internal or external, like, the little things that you say when you mess up or something, just those words count. Those words matter. So I definitely agree with that. And I also feel like, in a sense, the judgment, from like the military veteran perspective, we all compare our traumas to each other's. And I think that that is so damaging, because one person might have been through something similar as you, and they're handling it differently, doesn't make it wrong or bad, or that they're not healing or acknowledging the problem. And so that's something that I've had to let go of as well. As long as you're not harming yourself and you're figuring things out, if that's your journey, I respect that. And this is mine, and it doesn't have to look the same. So I'm proud of you for shutting those voices out and living your best life, because they don't see, what happens in 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days. They don't know those sad times that you have. They don't know, sometimes, yeah, you had a great day and you're winding down, and they don't know that, you do feel this, like, this wave of emotion of like missing Chris or missing the life that y'all could have had, like mourning that. They're not with you 24/7 to realize that. And if they would let go of that judgment, they would kind of understand and also give you that compassion. Like, hey, this woman has been through so much, but look at her. She's smiling, she's laughing, she's present. She's not living in the past. You're not just like sitting on a rocking chair, twiddling your thumbs, like not doing a damn thing or taking care of yourself or your daughter just because people expect you to still be mourning. So I'm proud of you for just taking a stand in your life and for your daughter as well. Like, just giving her a good example of, hey, there's going to be these hardships in life. This is what matters. This is what doesn't. And I think what you said about time is absolutely true. Like, you can get the money back. You can, do all of the things, but you can't take back the time that you spent, wasting, angry, sad, resentfulness. Like, if you're just in the moment and appreciating that, I think, you would live a more fulfilling life. You can go through X, Y, and Z and still have that as a part of your journey, but it doesn't define you,
In reference to like what you're saying about people having like different experiences, there's like that saying, it's like what is it? The same boiling water that softens the potato hardens the egg.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like it's not your experiences, it's you. And I'm like, yeah, like a lot of people, there was, another Gold Star widow that I was familiar with, and I was pregnant, so I didn't have the option to kind of like go out and drink with my friends and do stuff, and she did, and a lot of people gave her a lot of judgment for that. And it's like, you guys do know, if I wasn't pregnant, I would probably be doing the same thing. Like, I'd be with my friends, I'd be distracted, I'd probably have some drinks to like not think about how awful my life is right now. Like, I'm just pregnant. That's the only reason it looks so nice over here. It's like, don't compare. Like, because if I could, I would. Everybody's experience is different. Everybody grieves differently. And, some people move on faster than other people. Some people don't move on ever. And everyone's trauma is totally different. Like, you can't compare that. And I've gotten several messages of other widows that their husbands passed after Chris, and they were like, how'd you do it? Or what's your secret? Or what can I do? Or when is it okay to start dating? And I'm like, those are all up to you. Like, I can give you suggestions on go to counseling, get outside, take some time to yourself. But just because it worked for me doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody. And it's like, I can't, I've been pretty honest with a lot of people. Like, at first I was like, oh, this is what I did, and then I was like, it really doesn't matter what I did. Like you just do what you need to do, and whatever works for you works. And if you want to like get remarried within 6 months, go for it, And if you want to sit in your rocking chair for the next 20 years and not talk to anybody, you do it. Do whatever it takes to make yourself feel whole again, and uh, like remember to be gentle with yourself and forgive yourself for the person you were when you were surviving. It took a long time to step out of that like role of I'm just in survival mode. I'm just trying to like navigate this new life, and I'm just doing the best that I can, and I'm hoping along the way that I'm doing it right. And then reaching a point where it's been 5 years now. I'm like, I could have done that different. That probably wasn't the best idea. That wasn't super smart. That did let in a lot more drama, but it's okay. I was learning and I was in survival mode, and I was just doing the very best that I could offer. And I didn't know any different at the time. Like now that I'm done like feeling like I need to survive, now I can go live. And now I'm really focused on peace and people that bring peace and people that make me feel good. And if you like are someone that's positive and supportive, and we have totally different lifestyles and beliefs and opinions, that's fine. As long as you're good to me and I'm good to you, like that's all that matters. Rather than, well, I've known that person for a really long time, so we're, she talks down to me or something, but it's okay. We've been friends for like 10. No, like there's no more like giving people chances to disrespect you or be negative. It's you have to be good to me and vice versa, or this doesn't work. We're not giving opportunities for negativity anymore. And just because that's the way I handled the situation in the past doesn't mean that's how I'm going to handle it now. And I'm a different person, and I'm always growing, and I'm always evolving and changing my perspective of how could I do better, and to never become complacent and just like, well, this is good enough or this works. It's like, does it? How did it make that person feel? Did I make an assumption and get mad at someone, or did I sit down and act and have that awkward conversation of, hey, I think you're mad at me. Are you? Okay, what did I do? And that was a difficult one of like learning to stop making assumptions. Like, oh, so and so, like I text her and she just left me on red. Like I think she's mad at me, stuff like that. Like, no, like, hey, I text you and you didn't answer. Like, is there something going on? And then usually, it's nothing, but like not letting that negative anxiety like creep in of that person doesn't like you, or don't talk it out. Let your friendship just dissolve for no reason because you don't want that awkward moment. And yeah, like a lot of self-growth and healing has led me to a path where I'm like, I need to talk to people more. I need to express myself more. I need to be in uncomfortable situations more. And I need to give other people the opportunity to tell me that I did something wrong. And then it's up to me to make it right. Like, well, I don't want to be criticized. Like no one does. It's like, yeah, I did mess up. I did that wrong. I could have handled that differently. And that's a difficult thing to do, and a point to reach in your life of letting people criticize you in a healthy way, and then taking it and turning it into like growth. And it's like, well, I don't think that the way I did it was wrong, but this person says that I hurt them. I need to make that right. I need to change that behavior. I don't need to just apologize. I need to make sure I don't do that anymore. There were things, that I wish I had done different with Chris, where I'm like, man, I spent that whole week of us knowing that we were going to have a baby, fretting and worrying and not happy and anxious. Like, obviously I was excited, but I was like, oh my gosh, what about money? What about this? Oh my God, like we don't have room. We got to have a new house. Like, I was just going through the list of like worries. And he was like, I'm going to take the baby fishing. And I was like, what is wrong with you? Think about reality. Like, what about our bills? What about daycare? And he was just like, I hope it's a boy so we can go fishing. I was like, girls can fish too. What's wrong with you? Like, we're not on the same page at all. And then I was like, man, I should have really just soaked in that moment.
Yeah.
I should have done that different. Like, I should have been happy. I should have let myself be happy. And like, whatever happens will happen no matter how much you worry about it. And I'm a big person on like quotes and like,
words. Yeah.
If you're worried about, what is it? I saw it recently. I was like, man, that's a good one. I can't remember now. It's like regret is living in the past and anxiety is living in the future, something like that. Like you should
Right.
right now,
Being
like stop,
present.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
stop
Yeah, I
thinking
think I've heard
about
that
that
one.
and stop thinking about that, because neither of those things exist anymore. Or
Right.
one's already gone, one's not even here, and you don't know. So like, why even give it the energy? Just like focus on what's happening. And I'm like, I should have really focused on what was happening with Chris, and he was so excited, and I didn't share in that, and that moment's gone, and I'll never get that back where I could have been happy. Is another reason I'm like, I don't want to waste my time being like upset. Like I want to be happy. I want to enjoy things with people, because you don't realize that it's gonna be like your last moment with someone.
Yeah.
It's like, he was so happy. Why did I
Mm-hmm.
do that? Like, why did I waste that whole week not being happy with him? Like, I kick myself, like, even no matter what I had done differently, it wasn't going to change that Chris was going to pass. No amount of worrying about daycare money or anything was going to change his passing. So if I had known that those were like his last few days, I would have done that different. I would have really put in the time to talk to him and ask him like important questions and just enjoy it. And I didn't. And I'm like, so I try to like do that now. And I try to like talk to people. And I'm like, okay, what are you upset about? What did I do? What can I fix? Are we good? Are you happy? What can I do to make you happier? Are we enjoying this moment? Like, let's not let our ego, that's a big one, like don't let that ego get, well, they made me mad and I'm waiting on them to apologize. It's like, just take the first step. Like, what difference does it make if it all ends in like a resolution?
Absolutely.
Who cares who apologizes first? And if you do it and they don't reciprocate, okay, you tried at least. Like, swallow your pride, and if people matter in your life, you tell them, and you show them, you show up for them, you make the effort. Hey, you're really upsetting me, or this hurt me really bad when you did it, but I very much care about you. I love you. You're a big part of my life. I'd like to work through this, because it's not worth losing you. It's not worth having this, drag on. Like, let's have a good day. Like, it might be their last day.
Right.
Like, I don't know. It really shifted my perspective of like, does this matter? Yeah. Okay. Then give it the time that it deserves. Does it not matter? Then let's move on from it. Don't dwell on things. Go out and experience things. Go do something new. Like, do something that when your kid's like a teenager, they're going to be like, you did what? Why? Like, I want Christian to be like, I know she's gonna go through that phase where she's like, ew, mom. But I'm ready, kind of like waiting for her to get to that point where like we've gotten past that, and she's like, whoa, mom, like,
Yeah.
a lot. I'm like, I did all this for you. Like, I did all these hikes and travels and all this stuff. Like, so you would think that I'm, someone that you want to be like. I'm not doing it really for myself or anyone else. I'm just doing it so that I set a good example.
Mm-hmm.
I think
you want to be a cool mom.
Yeah, I think that's why I get so much imposter syndrome, because people are like, oh, you've done a lot, and you've been involved in a lot, and you've traveled a lot. And I'm like, yeah, I guess. But I'm like, I'm not doing it for recognition, and I'm not doing it to keep tally on anything. Like, I'm just doing things and collecting stories so that I can like pass them on to her, so she can be like, well, my mom did it, so I could probably do this. Because I came from a family that didn't travel a lot, and I was raised on a farm, and most of the time was spent like doing farm stuff, and you couldn't just kind of take off and leave that, which is why I didn't travel very much. And it's really easy to like replicate your environment growing up. Like, well, I didn't come from a family that did this, so I won't do this. And I want to be like so scattered and impulsive and random that no matter what Christian does, she's like, that'll be fine. Like, yeah, that's cool. My mom will totally support that, because she was a spaz anyway. So yeah, I'm just trying to make it an environment where she's like, she feels that she'll be accepted no matter what.
Absolutely. Wow. I'm glad that you're not holding back. Like, I think that that's just huge. And also the acknowledgement of like processing what is in front of you, giving it the time that it deserves, and then not wallowing on it is huge, and it's super important. And I really admire that too, because sometimes it can be one or the other, or that just like that in between. So I'm really proud of you for finding that healthy balance. And yeah, just not holding back in your life, because like you want to do these things while you're young, when you have the time, because you're not going to have that when you're older. And I think that's what a lot of people aren't really thinking about. So I just want to thank you so much for just coming on today, sharing your story, and also just being just vulnerable and honest about your journey. Because, like you said, you know, you can suggest all of these things that worked for you, but everyone is a little different. So, you know, give it a shot. If it works for you, great. If not, you know, let's find something that does. So I really resonate with that. And especially the last couple minutes that we've been chatting, how you've been talking about how you can show up to be a better person, holding yourself accountable. Like, okay, yeah, I was a little dramatic there. And let me just make sure that I don't do that moving forward, as well as like talking about how much you value your peace. Girl, I'm 28. I'm so over this drama. I'm like, oh, you're still a mean girl? Okay, peace.
That's the worst. I'm 31, and it wasn't until 30 that I was like, this is not okay anymore. Like, I'm an adult. I'm a woman. Like, I don't have to tolerate this stuff. Like, 30 was like the year it all shifted. And I was like, you know, up until that point, I was like, you know, I really don't like, no, I was like, nope, no more. Like, we're adults. You shouldn't be like making fun of other women and being catty for no, like, what are you doing? You're being mean for no reason. Like, what purpose does this serve? Just be nice.
100%. I can't. And it's the same women, girls that are like, or at least I wasn't a mean girl in high school. And then they're acting absolutely awful now. I'm like, is it any better? I mean, you should know better now. Like, but no, valuing your peace and what truly matters, what doesn't matter, because you're not hurting anybody. And also, you don't need to live the narrative that folks want you to live. So, again, I'm just very proud of you, and I really appreciate you sharing your story, because I think it's absolutely something that needs to be discussed. Like, let people grieve the way that they need to, live their lives the way that they need to. It might be a little different than yours, or you know, a friend of a friend who went through the same thing. You need to let people show up as themselves and appreciate them and accept them. And I think we could all be a little less critical and judgmental. You know, I love how when you're talking, I'm literally like saying the same words in my head. You know, like, that's a blessing. Like, I'm giving myself more grace, like little things like that you've said. I was like saying in my head as well. I was like, wow, like, you know, you really truly get it. You've done the work, and now you're thriving, you're living your life, and you're not holding back. And you know, you still can honor Chris's life the way that you want to. You know, he's not just completely forgotten. He's a part of your story. He always will be. And I think I really just wish people would back off. But also, even if they don't, I'm glad that you can show up in your life and you don't let that affect you anymore. So, you know, you have so many people rooting for you, admiring you, and loving what you're doing. And I think that the fact that you know, can acknowledge that there's more good and positivity than there is the negative, I think that that's absolutely like part of that perspective shift. So, you know, Britt, I'm a huge fan of yours, and just thank you again for coming on. But just know that, yeah, you have a whole team of women, survivors, people, community that just want to see you happy. And yeah, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. So I hope that it can help other people. But yeah, you live your life, girl. Do your thing. You're not hurting anybody. And yeah, I think Christian is going to be so proud of you just being a cool mom, you know, like, and I think that's another thing. People are very judgmental towards moms. And, you know, myself included, like, I don't get it. I'm not a mom yet. And so I had to also step back and say, like, hey, you know, that's her journey. She's doing the best that she can. Especially as a single mom, that is incredibly difficult. But being a mom, period, just the judgment is relentless. So if you're out here being a mean girl, judging moms, judging people's lives for the way that they handle their trauma, you know, I think you need to step back, take some deep breaths, you know, go look at some rocks, maybe go hiking. Yeah, just,
go through all your senses and think about it, and take 3 more deep breaths. You know what's crazy though? It's like, I see like women that are like in their 50s still doing mean girl stuff. I'm like,
no, you're right. Yeah,
I don't understand. I'm like, dude,
They just joined the HOA and they like have this power complex.
Satan. Like I hate HOAs. I'm like, I just want to plant some tulips, and they're like, no. And I'm like, why? Like, what am I doing?
Like, your tulips are tacky. I'm like, well, Deborah, I don't care.
It's so mean to people. Like, you're adults. Like, some of you have grandchildren. Like, what? Like, why would you waste so much of your life just like picking on other people and just being mean? And it takes a strong person to like do self-evaluation. And like, that's definitely something I've noticed. You know, I don't judge other people. Like, if you want to be mean, that's on you. You know, maybe you went through something really awful in your life and you didn't process it, and now you lash out at other people. Like, I don't judge you and I don't hate you. I feel empathy and sympathy for you. But I don't condone your behavior, so I'm not going to associate with you. But there's a lot of people that lack the I'm trying to think of the word, like, they just refuse to self-evaluate. They like won't acknowledge that they've done something wrong. They won't.
You mentioned ego, so I think it's part of that. They won't let their.
You can tell someone like, hey, you know, I feel like it's really common in like family members of like, hey, you were really critical of me, so and so, and it really hurts my feelings that every time I come around on the holidays, you poke fun at this thing or you bring up this sensitive subject. Like, I really wish you wouldn't do that. And then instead of being like, wow, yeah, I could see how that would hurt your feelings, I won't do that anymore. Or they're just like, it's just a joke. You're so sensitive. Get over yourself. Like, why would you, gosh, we can't say anything to you. We can't joke about anything with you. Or I just wanted to know why, you know, and you're too sensitive. That's a big one. And I'm like, I'm not being too sensitive. You know, not saying that necessarily it's my family. I'm just saying, like, as an example, like I have had many people in my life that they would say mean things, and like, you bring it up, they won't take responsibility for it.
Yeah, they're incredibly dismissive. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's been my challenge lately the past couple months. I've been a little MIA from my podcast because I've been dealing with like coming back and spending more time with my family. And I'm really proud of all of the work that I've done. And so it kind of helps me in a way how to better navigate throughout those struggles, but also acknowledging like, wow, okay, a lot of these things are very dysfunctional. They're very toxic. And those are the things that I'm unlearning, but some people aren't willing to do that. And it makes me feel like the jerk, you know, the toxic one. Like, I can't just let these things slide anymore because they're just not healthy. They're really manipulative or hurtful and harmful. And I'm just taking a stand. And you don't do that in a dysfunctional family. You don't do that. You know, you don't share the secrets. You're just supposed to keep the peace in this toxicity soup. And it really hurts me because I wasn't expecting this. I thought, you know, things would be like, oh, we're going to sing Kumbaya and we're going to hold hands and stuff. But it's really making me, again, realize what you're saying is that some people aren't willing to admit how they've done wrong, the ways that they enable bad behavior and everything else. So it's like, I'm back in my old stomping grounds, and I've changed a lot, and a lot of things haven't. So it's almost like I'm grieving that while also trying to remain grateful for how much I've, you know, become and unbecome. So it's just it is very hard, but hopefully, you know, like, I don't wish them any ill will. I don't wish them any harm. I just wish that they would show up better because, you know, they wonder why things aren't going well in their life, like certain relationships and friendships. And I'm just like, you know, kind of how you're saying, some self-evaluation, some accountability, some honesty, putting your ego aside could really help you get out of your own way so that you could have good relationships, good friendships, you know, anything else, enjoy your life a little better. But, you know, you can partake in it. You can add to the fuel, to the drama, or you could just kind of respectfully kind of like, hey, I'm not going to engage in this. And you just step away. Cause I really value my peace. I'm learning that not everything deserves a reaction, or how to better respond to that, because it's like people will say things to get a reaction out of you. And now I'm just kind of like, you know what? That was unnecessary. That was just rude. I'm not going to engage in a conversation with someone that doesn't respect me. And that's it. And I walk away. And they were like expecting me to like flip a table, slap them, call them names. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to put myself through that. That's what you would like, but I'm not going to. But yeah, learning how to like better show up and navigate these struggles with other people or situations have been really, really helpful. So I'm glad that, throughout the way that you've also learned that as well, because again, like you're showing up better in your life. And that's like really important. Again, as a survivor, as a mother, as a woman, period. I think a lot of folks expect you to just keep your head down and do as you're told. And it's like, no, that doesn't serve my narrative. That doesn't serve me. I appreciate your opinion, but it's unnecessary. And this is my life. So taking those reins on your life is like super important, because like, now you're living the life that you want to live.
Yeah.
You're around people that you want to be around. And yeah, you don't let things weigh heavy on you. And that's also a huge thing, that shame, that guilt. So yeah, I'm just really proud of you. And if there's anyone out there listening, just know that no, you're not the problem. Maybe the Taylor Swift song sounds like it, but no.
What I've definitely noticed that like when you start setting boundaries, like that's difficult. That's hard. And I had a friend of several years, and she did me kind of dirty. Like she hurt me very bad, and I just went to her like in tears begging for like an apology, like something, like acknowledge what you did was very, very hurtful. And she ignored me and was like, I just don't even want to, like, when I see your name on my phone, it gives me anxiety because like there's just too much emotion. And I'm like literally in tears, like what you did was such a betrayal. Like this was awful. Like I'm just asking for an opportunity to talk it out because you mean a lot to me. And I felt like I was begging for an apology, and she was just like, you're too emotional. Like this is too much for me. Like no apology, no responsibility for her actions. And it was such a blindsiding moment where I was just like, what you did was not okay. Like you owe me an apology. Like you owe me something. And I never got it from her. And that was a friendship that I really genuinely loved. And I thought the world of her. And so it hurt even more because it was so unexpected. I could have never pictured her being that type of person. So that really hurt me a lot. And then, I set my boundaries of like, this is not okay that you did this. And I deserve acknowledgement for this thing that you've done. And she gave me nothing. And so I gave up, and I was like, well, I said my part, and I know I didn't do anything to deserve this from her. So I'm just going to walk away. And then on the flip side of that, I had another friend of 11 years, and we had a little falling out. And it wasn't really necessarily anything that either of us did. It was just that we were both going through very difficult times. She was going through a divorce and a custody battle, and I had my own stuff going on, and neither of us really knew the details because we weren't sharing them. We were just kind of keeping it all inside and dealing with it, and it kind of spilled over into our friendship, and we were just like, ugh, and then that was it. And I set my boundaries with her, and I was like very clear, like this hurt me. I don't want to talk for a while. And she respected my space, but then she reached out multiple times. And every time I was like, I'm not ready to speak to you. And then she reached out finally again. And I was like, I'm ready to speak now. And let's talk it out. And honestly, I am so grateful that she did. I'm grateful that I set my boundaries, and I'm grateful that she continued to honor them and be respectful and take the opportunities to try to speak to me, because we have the best friendship that we've ever had now. Like it's so healthy and supportive, and we're much more vocal of like, this is what's going on in my life, and this is I can't talk right now. Like I can't give you anything. And then more of, hey, I really love you and I appreciate you and I can't wait to come to your bonfire. Like, it's just really open communication. And I've voiced to her many times, like, I am so grateful that this is where our friendship is now. And it took like both of us establishing like more open communication and boundaries, and like making that effort of, you know, like I said, like if someone means a lot to you, tell them. You don't just like let your ego like get to the best of you. And I definitely did that with her, and I was like, no, I'm still upset. And then I was like, no, that didn't make any sense. I am so glad that you kept reaching out. Like, I should have let that pride go a long time ago. Like, thank God for you that you were like on a clearer path mentally than I was about this, because now look at us. We're the closest we've ever been. Like, we're the happiest we've ever been. I'm like, I can't wait to see you all the time. Like, I love you so much. Like, you're so happy and I'm so happy. And now we're not in these bad situations in our life anymore. And we're both in really good situations, and we get to share that. And like, how we would be missing out on this together. But like, it takes a lot of like honesty and being raw and vulnerable with another person of, you hurt me, I don't want that to happen again, please respect these boundaries. Vice versa, I will do the same for you. I'm sorry I hurt you, I will make those changes for you. Versus the other friendship where she was like, you're just emotional and I don't want to deal with this, aka I don't want to take responsibility for my actions. And I think once you set those boundaries, the right people stay. And it sucks and it hurts to lose people that are important, whether it's friends or family. And especially when you're begging, like, please, like, acknowledge that you hurt me, please apologize, please, like, I want to keep you in my life, you mean a lot to me, like, you need to do something to make this right. And they're like, meh, I don't really care, I don't think I did anything wrong, you're too sensitive. And it's like, no, you really did something awful. Like, please, 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 like, make this right so we can stay friends and or family or whatever it may be. And then when they leave or they don't show up for you and they don't reciprocate that same like love, that's devastating, because you're like, wow, you meant a lot to me, and you didn't feel the way that I did, and you didn't care and support me the way I cared and supported you. And that realization hurts. But like I said, like, the right people will honor it and they'll stick around. And then it's just so much more beautiful. And you're just like, wow, this person's great to me. I'm so happy that they're in my life. Like, they make me feel so good.
100%. I also feel like there's like certain politics within like female or like girl relationships. And yeah, so you win some, you lose some. And I'm right there on that boat, you know. Again, I'm not going to partake in cliquish high school behavior. And, you know, it is devastating. It is a loss. It is very sad to see, you know, friends change or unwilling to, you know, admit like, hey, I messed up or what have you. But yeah, look what you gain from that. You have this really genuine, beautiful friendship. But yeah, you can also mourn that previous friendship as well. So good on you for navigating that. But yeah, it's like surprising that like, you know, you want to show up, you want to communicate, and something like boundaries can really trigger something in other women that are like, oh, you won't let me walk all over you? Okay, we're not friends anymore then. I'm like,
I can't use you. I can't do this thing that disrespects your boundaries. You're an emotional, sensitive person. It's like, oh, no. Like, I'm totally normal. Yeah.
But yeah, it's been like really fulfilling to do that work, to show up better in your life, to, you know, be present, to be honest, because I think you get the most out of that. Unfortunately, I feel like that's not always very common, and I want it to be, because the level of peace and happiness that you and I both share with, you know, all of this growth is anyone is capable of this. It's just, you know, your willingness to show up and do that. So
yeah, that's the best part. Everyone's capable. Like, everybody. Like, all you have to do is like really just like own up to your shit, you know? Like, did I do okay? Was I good to other people? Did I express myself and how I genuinely did? I communicate well? Like, did I treat people the way I would want to be treated? Like, yeah, am I doing okay? Like, cool. Or, you know, am I being dismissive and not taking any responsibility and just hurting people and kind of justifying it that they're too emotional, they're too sensitive, you know? Am I sabotaging things in my life? There's a lot that people, and a lot of people use their trauma as justification to be mean to other people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They're like, well, I've been through this. And it's like, okay, we've all been through something. Like everybody, even the person that you think has the best, most wonderful life in the world has still been through something awful. And it's something probably unique that you'll never experience maybe. And you don't just get to treat other people poorly, which I feel like I see a lot. Well, I've been through something really bad. The world owes me, and now I'm making it everyone's problem. Or I'm hurting because I went through these things. It's like, I get that. Trust me. I get it. You don't just get to treat other people so bad, though. Or I had a bad childhood, and that's why I have bad relationships. It's like, no. Like, you had a bad childhood. Now do the work. Yeah. Like, heal yourself. Grow. Learn from that. Don't repeat those mistakes and treat people in your life good. I see that one a lot. A lot of my like friends, you know, they'll like call me or message me and be like, da 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 da, so and so this and this and this, and I'm like, you know, well, he had a bad childhood, or she went through this, and I'm like, okay. Oh, it's someone cheated on them, so now, and I'm like, okay, but that's not a get out of jail free card forever. You can't just keep throwing that at people. Like, well, someone cheated on me, so now I have to have all of your whereabouts. It's like, you can't punish people in your life because of what someone else did. And trauma, I think, is an even bigger, excuse that some people can use of, well, I went through something really, really bad. And then a lot of people fall into that trap, too, of like, well, this did happen to them, so, like, let's just let it go and let it slide. And it's like, no. You can't, absolve someone of responsibility just because they went through something traumatic. Like, you have your opportunity to grow and grieve and process it, and you can take as long as you want. That's fine. But you don't use it as a justification to treat other people poorly.
Exactly. The way I see it is, it's a way to understand you. It's not an excuse.
Yeah. Like, here's something that I experienced and was hard for me. Do with that information what you will, or, maybe use that to know that things might trigger me, or be very sensitive on that subject because I've been through that. Like, okay, I'll adjust accordingly to make sure that you're comfortable, but you don't just get to just walk all over other people because I've been through something bad. And, I try really hard to, I have a specific trigger that I'll be very honest and vulnerable sharing that is upsetting to me. And like, in dating since Chris passed, if I am trying to get in touch with my boyfriend and my messages don't send, not that they're being like not answered, but like no signal kind of thing, like just don't deliver, it makes me go from like 0 to 100 so fast. Like, it is the most upsetting, like anxiety provoking thing. It makes my stomach drop, because that's kind of how I found out that Chris had died. Because I kept sending messages, because there was a news article like that 2 soldiers were killed in Kandahar, Afghanistan, and I was like, Chris, like, hello, and it was like not delivered, and I was like, that's when like the panic really started setting in before I even got notified, and I was like, something's wrong, And the more messages I sent and the more they were like not delivered is when like my stomach was flipping, I was like, it's Chris, it has to be Chris. And so here we are 5 years later, and if my message just says not delivered, I still get that like anxious, like, oh God, something bad has happened. Like, oh my God. And then it makes my text messages more anxious of like, hello, like, and then I have to remind myself, like, relax. Just because, that happened, like, it doesn't mean it's going to keep happening, like, people don't have service sometimes. Maybe it's me, like, but I wouldn't never share that with someone and then be like, you better always answer the phone because I one time, couldn't get in touch with Chris and it was because he was dead. So you better always be available. That would be crazy. But like, I share that, like, hey, this is something that makes me very anxious. And if I get like a little like too anxious that day, just, I'm sorry, this is why. And I'll work on that. It is a trigger for me. And there's not a lot I can do about it when it happens, but here it is, but you have to be very self-aware of like, this is my behavior and this is why I'm doing it, but it's not okay to like force that on other people. Like, I wouldn't want to be a guy that was dating someone that's like, you have to always answer the phone because my husband died. Like, I'm like, oh God. Like, Like, this is gonna be stressful, you know.
Yeah.
I can't push that narrative onto someone else because of something they weren't even involved in. But
Right. Yeah. But thank you for sharing that, and just, yeah, thank you for really just putting that into perspective. Like, again, like, it's a way to understand you. It's not an excuse for toxic and manipulative behavior. So I think that can be absolutely implemented in a lot of people's lives. So um, it's just, again, just sitting with yourself and being like, hey, how, like, evaluating yourself. And I think that's how you can grow, mature, and get better. And I think you almost kind of get addicted to that, like, hey, how can I show up better? Like, look at how my relationships are thriving, and like, I feel good about myself, like, I have better self-esteem, like, this, that, and the third. Like, your whole life can have a whole glow up if you show up and do the work.
you're totally right. It's like super addictive. I love that. I love communicating with my friends now. Like, how was your day? Was there anything I can do for you? Do you and you know, my best friend, I'm obsessed with her in like the most healthy way. Like, we talk very openly, and like we share everything. Like, I adore her. She moved to Indiana, so we're like going through this like separation from each other, and I miss her, but we still communicate a lot. And like, one of the things in our friendship that means a lot to me is when one of us is feeling upset or overwhelmed and we want to talk and vent, we'll ask permission first. Are you in a headspace that I can share this right now because this is heavy, or no? And you know,
I
and
love that.
and I'll be like, what's your headspace right now? And she's like, I am good. I am in a great mood. Like, let's go. Like, lay it on me. And I'm like, okay. And I'll send like, you know, like 50 audio recordings, you know. I'm gonna be really good. I need to get this off my chest. And then she always gives like a lot of reasoning, and like, and just one of the things that I just absolutely adore about her, like, she'll be like, okay, let's evaluate that. Let's talk about it. Is it that you really feel that way, or is it this insecurity? Like, call yourself out. And I'm like, damn, you're right. You're right. You're right. Yeah. I am. I'm being that way. And like, I appreciate your honesty. Like, I need to work on that thing. And it's hard to cultivate friendships like that, but it only comes with like growth and like, you know, really evaluating yourself and the people in your life, and like accepting that criticism. And I wouldn't even call it criticism that she gives me, but like where she challenges me, you know. And I'm like, God, I respect you so much, like, because you are so honest with me, but you're so respectful in the way that you do it. And just a lot of the things that she implements in our friendship, I'm like, that's so healthy. Like, I love that. Like, that's so good. And then I'll offer that to other people, and they shut it down. And I'm like, that's okay. You're not my person. You know, you don't really respect that thing that I'm trying to do. Or they will contact me and just like dump all their stuff on me. And I'm like, I'm in the midst of a 4-year-old meltdown. Like, I can't give you anything right now. And they're just like, now, like, I need to talk now. I'm like, you know, so that's a good thing that definitely comes from growth, is like being able to like really look at the people that respect your boundaries, and then all the positive that comes from it, versus like, well, I know how my best friend is and how like good she is at like respecting my boundaries and making sure that like I'm in a good headspace before she, like, you know, dumps anything on me, versus people who don't accept that even though I offer it and they still ignore it. And it's like, okay, well, having really good friendships helps you like kind of notice when you're not in one that's, you know, kind of bad.
Kind of like how you said, like, asking before, you know, just dumping and venting is really great, because that way, like, you can show up better as the person that they need. Whereas, like you said, like, hey, I'm dealing with a 4-year-old like tantrum right now. I need a moment to acknowledge this, and then I can give you my full undivided attention. That's very, very mature and very beautiful to have in a friendship. So I'm glad that you have that. And again, you know, you win some, you lose some. All right, everyone. This was Britt Harris. Thank you so much for coming on, and just, again, for being an inspiration, being honest, being vulnerable and genuine. You are just a nice, radiant piece of shiny gold in this like muddy water of like navigating life and figuring things out and growth. And just thank you for sharing your story and showing up as you.
This is like the nicest compliment. I love that. Thank you. I'm super grateful that you let me, you know, take the time to tell my story.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And if people want to reach out to you, is that an option? Like, are you pretty
Sure.
active on social media? Okay, sure.
I'm not too good on Facebook. Like, I'll be honest about that. I'm not the best at checking that, but like Instagram, like obviously I'm pretty active on Instagram.
Okay, for sure. And I'll be sure to link that. So everyone, this was Britt Harris. Go check her out. And yeah, this was Resilient and Rowdy.